All right, let's start, folks, as we get some good numbers rolling in. Certainly a quorum. Look, I'm not the guy that screams and hollers too much and gets people in a panic. But I got to tell you, the news of the last 24 hours, particularly today, with news that even as we speak, both Israel and the United States are escalating the attacks on Iran. I did not want that to go unnoticed. I try not to trouble folks on weekends, but look, we got to address some things. If this is going to be an all-out war, and let me assure you, as I did last time I was on, that this is a war. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not. Certainly, don't let Senator Markwayne Mullen, the newly appointed DHS secretary, who starts, I believe, at the end of the month. He's arguing that it's not a war, doesn't require the War Powers Act. Look, a brief incursion, get the job done. Something like Venezuela, by the way, if it were not a takeover of a country, something like that, go in, arrest somebody we've got an indictment for, get them out. Yeah, okay, I got that. Deal with an immediate threat. I got that. This is not that. Iran is not that. And so don't let people tell you it's not a war. Okay, where am I going with this? First, I want to do this. I want to pay respect to the 6 soldiers who already have been killed in action and were received today in what's called a dignified transfer. I'm told President Trump did attend that. And you know what? I think every president who loses soldiers under his command should be at the air base when those coffins come in and should spend time with the families. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it ingrains in a president the gravity of his decision making. So let's just take a minute and let me read the names and where they're from, because you'll see they're from everywhere. You're also you should know that every single one of these 6 service members is an Army reservist. And something over the years in my career that I became very aware of was the degree to which we rely on reserves. And they are now the first to die. And they are Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore, age 39, from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Captain Cody Kirk, Khork, age 35, Winter Haven, Florida. Chief Warrant Officer Robert Marzon, age 54, Sacramento, California. Major Jeffrey O'Brien, age 45, Indianola, Iowa. Sergeant First Class Noah Tijens, 42, Bellevue, Nebraska. And Sergeant Declan Cody, 20 years old, just 20 years old, West Des Moines, Iowa. All Army reservists. We hope eventually their families will find some peace and some comfort, but I wanted to get that out first order of business, because you know what? How can we sit here and talk about the war and not address the toll that it's taking everywhere, in Iran, on our troops, in the Middle East region where people have died? Yeah. Okay, I wanted to do that. Look, let's start first with my passion, which is national security. The Daily Mail has got a report that is extremely troubling, and I think it's an interesting segue from naming the dead service members that have been killed in action, because it talks, because this deals with the concern that our government may be hiding the real cost of this war in a way that actually not only deceives, but makes us less safe. So I say that in the context of the deceased first, because I am concerned that we may not know exactly, swiftly or accurately, if we lose more service members. Um, that sounds, I know to some that will sound like, oh, well, you've clearly got a bias against this administration. Yeah, I do, because I view them as a national security threat. And this war is perhaps Exhibit A. But more importantly, clearly not the first. It wouldn't be the first time in history if it happens that we're not getting the full story. It wouldn't be the first time. Study the Vietnam War. The numbers that were going to the president were wrong. Okay, so it happens. Why am I tying that to this next report by the Daily Mail? Well, because according to this report, the Trump White House has blocked a U.S. intelligence alert to all law enforcement agencies in the United States, warning them about the rising threat to the homeland tied to the war with Iran. Now, I want you to know something, because some of you who are savvy on the journalism scene might say, gosh, should you be quoting the Daily Mail? It's not exactly the paper of record. And I agree. I agree with you, but here's why I'm quoting. They've laid eyes on this report and they're quoting from it. Okay, so ordinarily, I know when I write columns, for example, I know that I'm not going to just rely on the Daily Mail. And I'm not. I'm not trying to get down on the Daily Mail. I'm just saying there's kind of a protocol in journalism on when you want to quote something. I'll just say this: they've laid eyes. They claim they've laid eyes on the report and they're quoting it. And to me, it sounds like a legit intelligence bulletin. Okay, because I've seen perhaps thousands over my career. So here goes. FBI, Homeland Security, and the National Counterterrorism Center. So by the way, it's a clue. It's a big deal when all three of those entities want to put something up jointly. They pay attention when that's happening. They were preparing to point out a joint intelligence statement on Friday to state and local authorities, alerting them of the heightened threat potential in connection with the war. This came from an unnamed senior DHS official. Again, unnamed in journalism, gotta be careful. If they've handed you the report and you're able to quote from it, different story. Details elevated threats by the government of Iran to U.S. military and government personnel and facilities, Jewish and Israeli institutions. That's a real concern. If I were in my previous position right now at the Bureau, at the FBI, I got to tell you, I would be all over engaging with the Jewish facilities, synagogues, Hebrew schools, Jewish community centers, Jewish retirement homes, which are, by the way, all over the place. And of course, Israeli diplomatic establishments and businesses all over that. Also, Iranian dissidents. Obviously, a very large Iranian dissident community here. Just generally, a large Iranian population in certain places in the United States. The greater Los Angeles and Southern California area, certainly the New York, New Jersey area. Why am I getting so detailed about that? Because that matters. Yes, there's an elevated threat. And if we're not letting this out to local, state, and county law enforcement, if we're putting blinders on people to the threat, then this kind of liaison that you've got to engage in with these communities is not going to happen. That is a serious concern, folks. It goes on to quote from the report, radicalized individuals with a variety of ideological backgrounds also may see this conflict or other geopolitical events as a justification for violence. So that's a very fancy way to say lone actor. We used to call them lone wolves. I like the fact that former FBI Director Chris Wray, I think it was, said it's enough with the lone wolf. It gives them too much cachet. Forget the lone wolf. They're lone actors, and I'm sure he'd rather call them something even less sexy. Yeah, that's the hardest to identify and to mitigate, right? We still don't know what the deal is with the individual in Austin, Texas on 6th Street who killed folks. So now it's 3 because one was taken off life support. injured over a dozen others. Remember wearing the sweatshirt that said "Property of Allah" and the T-shirt underneath that had an image of the Iranian flag. We don't know. We don't know, but that's someone who could just be motivated to violence. May not even be officially radicalized. That's what they're looking at right now. Was he radicalized or was he just mentally unstable and found an excuse to act out? This stuff needs to get out, folks. In my career, we were on, whether I was leading a field office or I was back at headquarters, yes, you would. The director of the FBI, I want to tell you what happens under normal times. Literally, the director of the FBI would be on a massive conference call. First, of course, with all the heads of his field offices, but also with the Jewish community, if it was necessary, the Muslim community, if necessary. And yes, we had all that on speed dial. That's how it works in the real world, folks, under normal conditions. The director says, get the phone conference going. I want all the Jewish leaders. Yeah. And it's a massive call. I don't know if that's happening now. I have no idea. Same would go for chiefs and sheriffs. I've been on those calls, sitting there, and you want to get an audience. So the way this works is the director sends a note to all the special agents in charge of the field offices and says, noon tomorrow or faster, get all your chiefs and sheriffs and your counterparts in other federal agencies, get them in your conference room. I'm going to be on the phone. And I'll tell you what, they show up. If a special agent in charge calls the chief and sheriffs in all the region you cover and says, guys, I don't know if you're out of town, in town, we'll patch you through, but you got to get here in my conference room. The director's going to be on the call. And that's how it works under normal conditions. I have not yet heard, because everything seems to be leaking. Let me know. I've not heard that FBI leadership or DHS leadership, whoever that is right now, Corey Lewandowski, are you still there? Has gotten on the phone with chiefs, sheriffs, state police, and of course, I don't know. I've heard nothing about the Jewish diaspora, Muslim community. I don't know. It was 5 pages, folks. Okay, again, let me shed some light. In my experience, 5-page bulletin. That's a lot. That's a lot. It's not just, hey, we're at war. Be extra vigilant. Keep your head on a swivel. It's 5 pages. It was called a Public Safety Awareness Report, Elevated Threat in the United States during U.S.-Iran conflict. Homeland Security broke protocol. Aha, imagine that. They broke protocol and gave the White House a heads up about the nationwide bulletin just hours before it was set to be released. So I'll pose this as a question. Are we letting politics get in the way of national security alerts? I mean, the other way to look at this is, it's pretty no-brainer. It's pretty obvious that we're at war with the greatest state sponsor of terror in the world. And some of you may go, it's like, no kidding. Put out the bulletin, for God's sakes. And we have to DHS has to call the White House and go, hey, I don't know if you're going to like this. And the answer is they don't like it. They placed it on hold. The White House, here's another reason why I'm reporting this. The White House did not deny blocking the terror bulletin in a statement to the Daily Mail. So this was their case to go, oh, no. We would never stand in the way of a national security bulletin to law enforcement. No, they didn't deny it. They said, in fairness, let me give you their response. The White House is coordinating closely with all government agencies. Okay, that means you're telling them you better not press send on anything without running this by us. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that? To ensure information being disseminated is accurate, up to date, and has been properly vetted. What? Even if that means taking additional time to review, they're taking additional time to review. To ensure nothing is done in a vacuum, said White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson. I feel much better now. Okay, so look, if I did nothing more today than come on and say, we're not getting access, and most importantly, your local and county and state law enforcement is not getting access to the latest because allegedly this bulletin, if it ever went out, would have actually told, instructed what law enforcement what to do to help mitigate this threat. Oh my. Wow. If I did nothing more today than let you know that that's happening, it would be a short call, but I would have felt like I did what I needed to do. Okay. If you got connections to your chiefs, sheriffs, you know, if you know somebody's living down the street from you or something, just ask them, hey, what's going on? Have you gotten word from DHS or FBI? Maybe it's happening on a local field office level. God, I hope so. I hope so, but I don't know. I don't know. Same goes for your Jewish facilities. Now they are very savvy security wise. They often hire if they can afford it. They hire off duty officers. They've got security. But look, folks, it's all hands on deck. Okay. Let me move on, though, because that's not the only thing I want to share with you today. You may have seen me post on social media, Instagram, Blue Sky Threads. Russia is providing Iran with targeting information to attack American forces throughout the Middle East. Let me say that again. Russia is providing Iran with targeting information on how to attack American forces in the Middle East. I don't know about you, but I'm disgusted by that. I know Vladimir Putin is a close friend of Trump's and may even be his handler. But I'm telling you, this is disgraceful. It's disgraceful in any environment, but in an environment where we refuse to lend any significant hand to Ukraine. And I'll get to an even more disgraceful story about Ukraine in a second. We are allowing Russia to assist Iran in targeting us. And do you know what your favorite press spokesperson at the White House said, Caroline Leavitt? She said, well, when asked by a reporter, doesn't really matter. She didn't say the president is upset. The president had a call today with Putin to tell him to cease and desist. She didn't say there will be repercussions for Russia around the world. Nope, she said it really doesn't matter because we're still decimating Iran. Whoa. Even when she was given a chance to walk that back, that's what she said. It doesn't matter. Let me tell you something. That's not true. I'm reporting this from the Washington Post. They still have a newspaper, barely. And this is big. They quote three sources. And they get into the nitty-gritty, folks. If you say, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Iran seems to be doing just fine. You know, they're hitting, we have 6 soldiers dead. They're hitting Kuwait, they're hitting Bahrain, they're what Saudi got hit. What's going on? Here's what people in the intel community are focused on, according to this, and why it's so apparent that not only do they have intel directly that Russia's doing this, but all the warning signs and indicators are there. And here's what they mean. It's the level of sophistication of the targeting that's going on. I'll give you an example. At the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia, the targeting was so precise of that building that it took out just the corner of the building that was the CIA station. Okay? What the experts are telling the Washington Post is that Iran is totally incapable of that precision. And they go on and on. Russia has passed Iran the locations of U.S. military assets, including warships and aircraft. They go on to say Iran does not have the kind of sophisticated military-grade satellites in space to precisely guide its targeting, but Russia surely does. The hitting of command and control infrastructure, radars, and temporary structures. Think about that. Like the one in Kuwait, where the 6 service members were killed. That was essentially a trailer they were sitting in, which, by the way, oh my God, why? Why? But that's not what Iran can do, folks, by itself. Uh-uh. Hit a temporary trailer that popped up? No, no. That's Russian satellites and other intelligence. They go on to talk about um, just hitting the CIA station in the U.S. Embassy. Unbelievable. The precision has got everybody's attention. Iran only has a handful of military-grade satellites. They have no satellite constellation of its own. So this is Russian imagery at an advanced level. And they've gotten better at it. Guess where the Russians honed their precision use of satellites? In Ukraine. So again, I'll get on my soapbox. The fact that we chose not to recognize Ukraine as an opportunity not only to help people who want democracy and freedom, not only to prevent Russia from spreading throughout Eastern Europe, but it's an opportunity lost in degrading the Russian capabilities. Instead, it's been an incredible learning experience for the Russian military, and now it's come home, where it's bitten us and our soldiers are dead. Yeah. You may have heard Secretary of Defense Hegseth when asked about, you know, media coverage of the death of U.S. service members. He became incensed, right? As did Caroline Leavitt. You guys only want to make Trump look bad. And he said cavalierly, sometimes these missiles are going to squirt through. We've got squirters coming. What are you in junior high school? What you really should have said, Secretary Hegseth, is, yeah, the missiles that are getting through are the precision-guided missiles that Russia's helping Iran with. So it's not just, oh, some went through. No, and you know darn well from your intelligence briefings, Secretary Hegseth, that those missiles are getting through not by happenstance, but by precision that comes only from a place like Russia. All right. Let's move on to this next story, which is closely related, which is, and I told you we'd get here, President Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine, posted on X Thursday that he's been asked by the Trump administration, this will make you bang your head against the wall. He's been asked for assistance, military assistance from the Trump administration that refuses to help his own country, specifically in helping protect against Iranian drones, and that he said Kyiv would provide specialists in response to this request from the Trump administration. Maybe he should have said, you know, I won't say it here, but go F yourself. Unbelievable. So the proxy war we could be fighting, think about this. People don't like the phrase proxy war, but I just told you, I think it would be a great idea to degrade Russia by assisting Ukraine. I've said that ad nauseum. But now we haven't done it, and look what's happening. If the Washington Post is correct, 3 sources and lots of intel experts saying, oh yeah, this is precision from Russia. That's right. We now have a proxy war going on, right? Russia's helping Iran. Iran's fighting us. Who are we fighting? Russia. We could have done this in Ukraine, folks. We could have done this in Ukraine. Pay me now, pay me later, right? Unbelievable. So we want, Iran has been one of Russia's chief backers. Unbelievable, right? So Russia's helping them back out. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Here we go. They shared with Russia the technology to produce cheap one-way attack drones that have repeatedly been used to overwhelm Kyiv's air defenses. Yeah. A classified report by the National Intelligence Council found this is the next story. It's all related, folks. But again, for those who missed the start, even as we broadcast live here right now on Saturday afternoon, evening, Trump is saying, and Israel, they are now escalating the attacks. The worst is coming. And you think, well, okay, if there's any benefit to that, maybe this will be over soon. Maybe whatever objective Trump pulls out of his pocket in the next 15 minutes and changes every 15 minutes. Maybe we'll get to that objective with these large-scale attacks, and maybe, miraculously, a Democratic leader will rise from the ashes, and the Iranian people will welcome him with open arms. Here comes a classified report by the National Intelligence Council that says, time out on that, folks. Even a large-scale assault on Iran by the United States would be unlikely to oust the Islamic Republic's entrenched military and clerical establishment. You know, it's a theocracy, but they've got this kind of parallel civilian structure. The experts are telling us in a classified report, that's not going to happen. Not likely. You're not going to see an entrenched culture, right? This idea that we have a theological leader and a civilian leader, but really it's a theocracy. The idea that you can snap your fingers, knock down buildings, kill everyone, and suddenly that concept will just go away. It will just go away. No, they have a massive army, massive IRGC. Those people don't go away. No, you can't kill them all. And they have sons. Yeah, no. So the experts are saying no. It's a sobering assessment as the Trump administration raises the specter of an extended military campaign that Trump's officials say has only just begun. Yet here we are in the face of all this expert analysis. And what are we doing right now? We're escalating. We're escalating. And by the way, even though Secretary Hegseth says it's nonsense, most experts say we're also running out of missiles. Yep. Trump says he's going to clean out Iran's leadership structure and install, get this, a ruler of his choosing. Well, which is it, President Trump? You told us the other day that you've killed everyone. Choice A, B, C, and D, you said, are dead. Because you said that the attacks were so successful. Think about this as a metric of success. Sir, how do you measure success in the war against Iran? We killed everybody that we wanted to take over. Everyone that we had in line as a reasonable leader, we've killed them because our attacks are so successful. Yeah, as I posted, and you may have seen, that's not success. That's an intelligence failure. And now when you hear the president talk, you'll hear maybe he reads my stuff, because he said, well, now what we're going to do is we're going to attack everybody, but not the folks we want to take over. So maybe he's listening. Maybe he's listening. Wow. Well, and then where does this go? This flows nicely. I had this in order for a reason. Where are we going from here? Folks asking the question, when does this become a world war? We just heard, you've just said, Frank, that Russia's helping Iran target us. Iran has attacked other states in the region who are, by the way, livid, and they should be, And now there's been an apology. Whoops, I'm sorry from Iran. What? Sorry. We won't do that again. By the way, I just heard before I went on the air, they did it again anyway. They struck somebody. But so to answer your World War question, and it's not like there's going to be I think, a clear line where we go, aha, now it's a world war. There might be, because the news today is what? That our European friends, and I say friends only because they used to be friendly. It's America first now, right? So we don't need NATO, we don't need France. But from whether you're talking about the UK or Italy or France, well, they don't like it, but they're in it now. They're deploying ships, planes, not, let me say this, not to have our back, folks, because certainly Trump doesn't have theirs, but rather because they have no choice. This is about oil and supply chain and their interests getting attacked in the Middle East and containing this so it doesn't get out of control. And so when you see that, you have to ask yourself, how long is it before UK's already taken a hit at a RAF, Royal Air Force Base. They've already taken a hit in the region. That's enough. They said that's enough. How long is it before one of those allied resources who don't want this get a ship struck, get a plane downed? How long? How long before another hit on an allied base in the region? Because Russia's helping Iran with precision targeting. And then what? And then I will come on and I will tell you, folks, if the Allies start lobbing missiles now in retaliation for that hypothetical situation, folks, yeah, I think we are. I think we are headed toward a world war if that scenario plays out. And then if Russia goes from quiet targeting assistance to something worse, then I'll feel very confident telling you that Trump has gotten us into World War III, which is probably what he wants. Because we're not talking about Epstein, although I still am. And, as he said from the White House, if we have a war, you mean I can suspend elections? Yeah. Next segue. Cuba is next, folks. Cuba is next. Don't take my word for it. That's what the Trump administration is saying. From the lips of Donald Trump. A federal prosecutor in Florida is looking to build criminal cases against leaders of Cuba's government and Communist Party. Yeah, I know who that is. I know who the U.S. attorney is. Of course, he's appointed by Trump. He's been looking into all kinds of things on behalf of his master, Donald Trump. They've got a little working group going that includes Treasury, the FBI, State Department, and others. Does this sound familiar? Making a case. The Department of Justice making a case against a leader or leaders in a foreign country so we can grab them and remove them. Yeah, if it sounds familiar, it's called Venezuela. Now, I want to be clear. I am no friend of the Cuban regime. I was in the number 2 position at FBI Miami. I know the Cuban regime. They're bad folks. They spy on us. They harm Cuban activists and dissidents in the United States. And it's a collapsing nation right now. But the notion that Trump's got in his head now, after the success in Venezuela, is I can do this again. I can do this at will. And there'll be no repercussions. Folks, I don't know if anybody's told them, but Cuba doesn't really have a lot of oil. But I think what he says, what he's thinking in his head, this is to the extent that any of us can penetrate the brain of Trump, is boy, those beaches look good. Boy, a Trump resort, Havana, would be something else. Yeah. Yeah. 90 miles away, folks. And spring break in Havana sounds awfully good to Trump. Wow. Canada has made a decision to send food and medical aid to Cuba as they experience these tremendous hardships right now. Trump has said, we'll just take the country and get rid of the regime. Canada's sending food and medical aid. The United States, ah, we'll just, we'll just take it. We'll just take it. Yeah, watch that closely. Watch that closely. And again, ask yourself, okay, hold on a second. We've got the largest aircraft carrier and its group positioned off of in the Middle East. We've got a second aircraft carrier there. We're lobbing missiles at the tune of I kid you not, $1 billion a day is the cost of the war against Iran. Ask yourself if we can actually take Cuba in the near future. How, how's that going to happen? What, we're going to reposition the groups? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And that's boots on the ground too, folks. If you're going to, you're going to indict people and handcuff them. Yeah, you got to go in again. It's tough stuff. It is, but they're working on it. They're working on it. I'll leave you with this last thought. I think it's my last thought. Can't predict though. A total change of topic here. This has all been Iran and military related thus far. But I've talked here before about the earliest murder of a U.S. citizen by ICE in the United States. And it's not Renee Goodman. It's not Alex Preddy. But if you remember, it was a young man, 23 years old, in South Padre Island, Texas. And what fatal error did he make? He came upon a car accident where police officers and ICE were directing traffic around the accident. If it seems odd to you that ICE is directing traffic around an accident, yes, you would be correct. But ICE says that this young man was told to stop his car, and instead he accelerated toward an ICE agent, even perhaps striking the agent. Well, guess what, folks? We have video now of that murder. And it conflicts with the ICE story. I know you're shocked. It shows that this young man, a U.S. citizen, was shot with his brake lights on. The car was not moving. And that's when ICE, or let me say this, DHS, because it's not, this gets worse, folks, right? So it can't get worse than this. This is a cover up. But it's still not entirely clear which DHS agency did this. Remember, it's an alphabet soup over there, right? So it's very easy for us. And I just fell into the trap, didn't I? I said ICE. Actually, there are indicators that it could be HSI, which, by the way, is shocking to me in a sense because they're the closest thing to real federal agents. Homeland Security investigations. They investigate things. I don't know why in God's name they're directing traffic. I have no idea. Except, it's Texas, it's near the border, who knows? But then there was the cover-up. And that is that the report literally just, local police report said, law enforcement involved shooting. I've never seen a shooting report that didn't name the agency that did the shooting, right? In fact, it's in the best interest of the local law enforcement agency to go, "It was not us who shot this kid." But no. So now you'll feel much better with what I'm about to say. Governor Abbott of Texas has told the DPS, the Department of Public Safety, probably the Texas Rangers. He said, "You guys look into this." Oh boy! But we have the video, folks. We have the video, and we'll see what the new DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen and his sister Shania Twain Mullen. No, I'm sorry. No, I don't think he has a sister by then. We'll see what he says about it when he takes over. Horrible. It's horrible. Look, we got to stay together. We have to keep each other informed. And we have to check our news sources. Yeah, carefully. That's why I went through that little drill with you on the Daily Mail and look for, did they obtain a copy of this report they're quoting from? Yes. How many sources, right? Check that out. It's going to become really important. Really important. Stay tuned. I'll join you again, and I'll keep teasing you with the fact that, yes, there's big news coming in terms of a regular show that you can count on at a regular time and day on a major platform on Substack. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Spend time with your family. Unplug from some of this terrible news, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.